Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. First and foremost, we'd like to thank Gedale Fenster for coming here and making us We would like to thank Hitbodedut for allowing us to host the event here, for working with us in the past 3 months, especially Rabbi Kaczynski and Rachel. Thank you. I'd also like to thank Ghost of Fardig and Cody Akini for partnering with us for this event, as well as the following people: Seely Sit for a tireless effort in organizing everything from the catering to the wrestling. Gali Ravi, Toby Rubenstein, Uriel Satara, Sharon Noah, and Candice Yanisha Kui, and of course Isaac Jamal, and somewhere over here in his amazing production company. With no further ado, Gedale Fenster.
Thank you. Hi guys, how are you? I'm so honored to have this crowd. I want to apologize for everybody for yesterday. I was stuck in DC for literally 8 hours, and I tried to make the flight in the last hour. It was all day long. I should have taken the train. But in Florida, there's not too many trains in Florida, so I never would have thought about it. Can everybody hear me? Okay, we have a very, very, very powerful class tonight. There will not be any Moroccan jokes, because I don't know any Persian jokes, so there will not be Moroccan jokes. So we're going to keep it. So tonight, we're going to discuss Hitbodedut. It's an unbelievable thing. Hitbodedut is something that I've done for the past 10 years, and it's literally changed my life. It was probably one of the biggest game changers. We know, I think right now there's over 700 classes, and there'd be no way I would be able to deliver these classes if I didn't do Hitbodedut. So you could see Hitbodedut is an aspect of Ruach HaKodesh. Everybody runs when they have a problem today. They're running to Mekubalim, they're running to card readers, they're running to this guy, they're running to this guy. I'm going to show you tonight that the answer to your problems is in your heart. And that's something very, very powerful. Because if you know that the answer to your problems is in your heart, you're going to spend more time praying than overthinking. You're going to be careful what you do with your heart. You're going to be careful how you approach things in life. And the key to everything really is, that's what Reb Nachman says, that Hitbodedut is greater than everything. He said something is greater than everything. When I first started in Breslov over 18 years ago, everybody can hear me? It's good? When I started in Breslov 18 years ago, it took me 10 years to start doing Hitbodedut. 10 years. So it's not something that's easy. Because you'd say, oh yeah, Hitbodedut is nice, but I kept on flipping the page and flipping the page and flipping the page. Only when life got really, really rough, I said I have no other options. I've tried everything else. My attorney's not handling my problems. My accountant's not handling my problems. My mother-in-law is the problem. And I realized I went to Mekubalim, I went to caves in Israel, I bought amulets. Name the sigulot. I did it, and I recognized what's going on here. Nothing's working. Nothing's working. Me, I'm a very solution-oriented person. If I can buy a sigulot for $4,000 or $5,000, take care of my problem, it's a pretty good investment. But all I was going was on a very, very, very dark path, and I recognized my problem was my faith. My problem was my faith. Because I was trying to change a situation without changing myself. We have to understand that God gives us in life a problem, a lack, so you can come closer to God in that lack. The lack is created so He can bring you closer to you. So that's exactly what happened to me. I didn't recognize that the problems in my life were actually an affectionate of love from my Creator. I thought He was doing it to me instead of for me. So I stopped being a victim for 2 years. And that's when everything shifted in my life. This is like going from little neck to great neck, basically. The purpose of this class is to get you from little neck to great neck. And it's funny, Little Neck, I was driving here. I said, what's with this Little Neck place? Aren't we in Great Neck? No, Little Neck is a different area. Great Neck is much greater. And I was talking to Uriel, and I said, wow, it's a very deep concept. Because Little Neck represents Egypt, Metzar Garon. That means your throat is constricted. Your neck is shortened. Why is your neck shortened? Why is your neck constricted? Because you don't have an abundant spirit. You can't breathe. What's making us not breathe? Our emotions. So I said, oh, that's a great title for tonight's class. Literally 10 minutes ago I figured that title. Go from Little Neck to Great Neck. What's happening when we go from Little Neck? When we look at our problems, when we have a Little Neck mindset, we're looking at the problems as they're happening to me. I'm the victim. I can't understand. Confusion. Chaos. Anytime we're in that state, what's going to happen? Our mood is going to take over our lives. I said many times, Joe Dispenza says it the best. And he says, anytime you have a situation in life where your personal reality, something that happened in your house, in your life, became your personality, you got a problem. Because what happens? That became your whole life. That means something outside of our lives affected who we are. And I said, how could you prevent that? Things are going to go wrong all the time. So the key really is to go from let your personality become your personal reality. That means if you have a resilient personality, you're going to be able to handle these things. Like last night, 9 hours in an airport. But this is all we speak about in the classes. We speak about the tzimtzum, we speak about the darkness is irreceptible for the light. I'm in the addictions business, and there's not a day that I don't see people taking heroin, marijuana, I mean, you name the addiction. And we need to understand something, that the purpose of darkness, and it begins with creation. God created the world with too much light. So he purposely made a breakage of the vessels. That's called the Shfirat HaKeli. Our tikkun in life is to take that trauma and use it to triumph. That means that darkness itself that we go through in life is the beginning of the foundation for your new light. Something has to destroy in order for a person to have a new reality. So what happens is, when we're taking our darkest times in our life and we're numbing the pain, and we're either venting our emotions, we're suppressing them, we're not transforming them, what happens? That's how we stay in trauma forever. That becomes your personal reality, and there goes Addictions 101. So, like I tell people, very simple. Either you have emunah, or you have marijuana. It's very simple. A person cannot use marijuana to solve his problems. I mean, you're missing out on the light that you get from the darkness. And this is the problem today. The problem today is we're not using the proper things. We're not using emunah to get what Hashem wants from us in that situation. And that's where the problem today is. We're numbing our emotions. So you're not going to be able to do it just by yourself. That's where you need Hitbodedut. You need a form of prayer. So it's not that we speak about addictions, it's so bad. It's the problem is, what is it doing for you? It's stopping your growth. It's putting your life on pause. Your life is on pause, bottom line. Because if you're not getting if the purpose of the breaking of the vessels is to create something new, what happens? You're numbing out life. You're numbing out everything, and you never get to second base in life. That to me is very painful. Because I say, how is this person going to get to the next level? Until he starts transforming darkness, until he starts using emunah. So let's talk about the advantages of Hitbodedut, and then I'm going to give you the step-by-step. Maybe we'll have a question and answer after. I already have maybe 3-4 classes on Hitbodedut online. So what is Hitbodedut? Hitbodedut is a conversation with God. The purpose, like I said before, the purpose of any problem is for you to get closer to God. What is real pain today? Pain is being away from God. That's pain. Closer to God, it's not pain. That's the purpose. So Hashem always creates lacks in our life. For example, a person can be single. That's what Hashem wants. He wants them to come closer to Him through that. A person has financial situations. He wants you to come closer to you to that. We have to get to realize that today, the majority of people are going through very, very tough times. The first thing I ask them, why don't you try Hitbodedut? Try something different. Because the way you're thinking and your mood is determining 90% of your decisions. How much percent of our decisions is based on our mood? 95%? And what happens? The way a person feels is because the way he's thinking. So if we don't start, the biggest shift happens when you start questioning your thinking and stop questioning God. I can't tell you that enough. All day long, questioning God. How could God have done this? How could this guy have more money? How could that guy have that? I didn't understand why this guy. All day long, you're in the wrong lane. If you're questioning your Creator and you're not questioning your thinking, then it's very hard to get to the second base. It's very hard to get to round 2 in life. So the little neck mentality is mochim kadnut. Mochim kadnut means small-mindedness. This is in Kabbalah, it's called a bad mood. In Kabbalah, bad mood is called mochim kadnut. We're not looking at the problem the right way. The purpose of Hitbodedut is to change the way you look at the problem. Remember, the purpose of Hitbodedut, it's not that the problem goes away, but you make a shift in consciousness. You look at the problem completely different, and all of a sudden, what happens? All of a sudden, you react differently. For example, we all know my problems with my patients. And I recognize my biggest problem is, I have businesses, is expectations. Let's say I expected to make this quarter. And next thing, it didn't happen. So what am I going to do in prayer? Please, God, make the numbers greater? Change something else without me changing? That's a problem. But what am I really doing in prayer? I'm turning my expectation into appreciation. So I'm taking, wow, you know what? Why am I only focused on one thing? How about the 95% of other things good in my life? I start drawing gratitude. I start feeling abundant instead of waking up on a lack. If you wake up in the morning, waking up with a lack, you're basically telling Hashem, this is what's missing, and unless you change that thing, I'm not going to be happy. So you basically cut off a lot of other blessings. Because what happens? You're in a state of mochim kadnut, little neck. Our job is to go from little neck to great neck. Is to shift your consciousness to see, you know what, instead of expecting that problem, I'm going to start appreciating. That is a prayer where you change what? The quarter's the same. The employees are the same. The money's the same. But now I shifted my mindset to focus on gratitude instead of ingratitude. All of a sudden, what happens in Shemayim? There's a shift for me. There's a shift for me. Because now I shifted, what happens upstairs? There's a shift for me. Basically, the way the world was created is that the person themselves has to make the arousal. Because otherwise, there would be no free choice. There would be no free choice. What's another example of a prayer where you change? You're angry at somebody. You're angry at somebody because they hurt you. Right? Somebody made me angry. In prayer, what are you going to do? Hashem, punish that person so I can get even? No. You're saying, God, because you give me mercy all the time, I have to give this person mercy. So all of a sudden, after prayer, you come out and you say, you know what? I forgive you. I forgive you. Why did you forgive me? Did she apologize? No. But all of a sudden, you shifted your mindset. So now, you start showing compassion to people, even if they hurt you. Now upstairs, they show compassion to you. So a good indication, whether you had a good Hitbodedut or whether you didn't properly do Hitbodedut, is you should feel completely refreshed. After a good Hitbodedut, after a good prayer, conversation to God, you should feel completely different. If you don't feel completely different, go back. You haven't done it right. you should feel like a new person. There would be no way in the world that I would be able to give classes every single day with all the stuff that's going on in my life if I didn't take out the junk in the morning. I would never have that mindset. But when I come to pray, when I come give the class, I feel abundant. So if I feel abundant, what's going to happen? You get joy. It's very simple. There's a difference between a person being, God forbid, depressed and being brokenhearted. Depression comes from the spleen. I don't like the way the world is running for me. Brokenhearted means I'm stuck in this addiction. I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I'm calling out to you. That's a broken heart. That's allowed. Because after a broken heart comes happiness. But a spleen is what? It comes from the bile, the spleen. That is, God forbid, depression. And that's what we have to be careful, because the one indication whether or not God is with you in your most important decision in your life is happiness. That means people make the worst decisions in the worst states of mind. And you're getting that information from the other side. So our job is to make that shift. Once you're in a state of simcha, then you can make that decision. So back to Hitbodedut. Reb Nachman says that the essence of life force comes from prayer. Prayer to God is my life. What is he saying here? Something very deep. This is why a person should pray with all his energy. When a person prays with all his energy and concentrates on the words, his energy is renewed. You want energy? There's a difference between time management and energy management. Do we all agree on that one? You can have plenty of time, but you wake up with a lack. You wake up fixing what's wrong with your life. What's going to happen? You're going to be exhausted. That means I could sleep for 5 hours, wake up, plenty of energy. This guy could sleep for 9 hours, and he could wake up exhausted. It's not the amount of sleep, it's your mindset. Because where is the energy coming from? It's coming from the soul. Why am I so exhausted in life? It's because I'm trying to focus on things I can't control. I'm trying to control events I can't control. Like yesterday. What am I going to do? Am I driving the plane? What can I do? This is what God wants. He wants me to be stuck in an airport for 8 hours. Last time I came to New York, I was stuck in an immigration office for 8 hours. Why is this happening? I don't know. When I went to Vegas, nothing got canceled. When I went there, nothing got canceled. But he sees, God willing, people are going to change. There's going to be... So the Yetzer Hara knows something has to go wrong. But can I control? I can't control anything. I can't control it's going to snow. I can't control anything. The only thing I can control is what I focus on in my life. What do I focus on? What am I focusing on every day? Do I focus on how stressed I am or how blessed I am? If you focus on how stressed you are, guaranteed segula for no energy. If you focus on how blessed you are, you're going to feel completely different. So that's what Nachman's telling us, that prayer is your energy. The energy comes from prayer. Let's give a practical example. Somebody says, if I do exercise, I don't want to do exercise, I'm too tired. But if you do it, you're going to have energy afterwards. That means exercise means energy. But if a person's thinking exercise is an obligation, exercise is going to tire me out, then he's not going to do exercise. But if I do exercise, I know after exercise comes energy. So most people connect to prayer, they're exhausted from his prayer, they don't want to try, they're done with it. It's because they pray and they don't let go. They pray and they want to control where is it going, how come I'm not being answered now, how come this is happening? You have to pray and let go. It's like you're a farmer, you plant a seed and you go back into the house. You don't plant the seed, is it going to rain tomorrow? Is it not going to rain tomorrow? Maybe it's windy. Oh my God, I'm worried it's windy. So what happens? It doesn't grow. You have to pray and let go. People are exhausted because they're watching the scoreboard. They pray and they look up. Is it changing yet? And that itself is arrogance. Because anytime we're praying like that, what are you doing? You're doing it for the transaction. You're not doing it for the connection. You're doing it for the transaction. Of course, if I tell you pray, your life is going to change. But if I tell you, you have to start praying to change you. Rav Nachman says here in lesson 172. First, I'm going to talk about the advantages so you guys can understand it, because I believe in order to change something, you have to change your belief about it. Like I have to change and believe exercise gives me energy. Prayer gives me energy. Not prayer is heavy. Because what happens? You're not praying right. Rav Nachman says in lesson 172, and he says, whatever a person's lacking in his life, whether, God forbid, livelihood, health, etc., is entirely from the person himself. For the light of God is constantly flowing on the person. But because the person is creating shadows, my mood could be my shadow, my anger could be my shadow, my addictions could be my shadow, my lack of patience could be my shadow. So I can never pray, I can never approach God and say, how come there's not any more light? I don't get it. Change your light. What do you mean change your light? The light's on, but you're in the beach and you have an umbrella on top of you. You need to remove the shadows. So Breslov, Rav Nachman's telling us that we have to remove the shadows. And that's what we do when we pray. We remove the shadows. Why am I so cruel? Why can't I forgive this person? My ego doesn't want to forgive, but my soul wants to forgive. Because not everything that happens to me is about me. My ego says this person wronged me, my soul forgives. Your ego is drawn to lust, your soul is drawn to love. That's how you know, but you can't do that on Instagram. You have to do that by yourself. You have to cut and stop and recognize the patterns in life. So that's the purpose of real Hitbodedut. It's not to change the situation. We never ask Hashem, give me more money. We want to ask Him, what's stopping me from receiving? That's a better question. You know, some people, they ask great questions, they get great answers. But some people ask really stupid questions. And what happens after you get to ask the stupid questions? You get a stupid answer. How worse can my day get? Let me show you. Let me show you. Your mother-in-law extended her stay with you. How worse can my day get? How long is this problem going to happen? What kind of questions? How do you feel when you ask that question? We want to ask you, what am I doing to please God help me? I want to remove my shadow. What can I do to remove my shadow? When I was single, I got married in 30 days. You know what my prayer was? Not to find a shidduch. I said, God, I really don't want to sin. I can see where I'm going in this direction. I'm in Miami Beach. I could see where my soul's going to go. I didn't even ask for a shidduch. No shidduch. I don't want to sin. Oh, you don't want to sin? Here's your shidduch, 30 days. Got married in literally 45 days. My wife came to my house. I had a Shabbat party. But my intention was not really to get married right away. I don't want to sin. I don't want that lifestyle. Because you definitely don't want that lifestyle for me. So the prayer came from the heart. When you pray from the heart and you pray for God's sake, then you get answered right away. Get answered right away. But if you're only praying for, what is this guy going to give me? What is she going to do for me? That's not the soul. You want a soulmate, you have to be in your what? Soul state. Tomorrow I'm talking in Tarantulas. And LA is all, what can they do for me? What can you do for me? What can you do for me? I always said, you have to find the wife that will get you the trophy, not the trophy wife. You have to find the right wife that will lead you. It's the difference between Mackenzie Bezos and whoever he's going to marry. It's a big difference. She made him. The other girl didn't make him. So when we go to get married, or we find the right zivug, we want to go, where can I give? Where is a place where I can give the most? Where can I give? Then you're going to get answered all the time. But what can I take? It's a prayer of the ego. It's a selfish prayer. That's the purpose of Chassidut. The purpose of Rav Nachman's teachings, the purpose of Chabad, What Chassidut teaches you is to get away from you. Get away from you. Get away from you. A humble prayer is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. What can they do for me? What can they give me? It's always about me. So you have to get out of yourself. You have to get out of yourself. And then things magically happen because all of a sudden the prayer is coming from the heart. It's not coming from the ego. It's not coming from the ego. So that's what I try to do in these classes, is to get people to shift their mindset. Shift your mindset, because when you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change. And then you have a bigger vessel, and then you can receive more. And it's not easy. It's not easy by any means. This is very difficult. It's not easy. But without the proper coping skills, without the proper rituals, it's going to be almost impossible. So remember, the light is always shining. If you have an umbrella on top of you, don't ask God to give you more light. Ask Him, take away the umbrella. Why am I holding an umbrella all the time? Let the light in. Let the light in. Okay, that's lesson 172. That's why I want to give you guys a different understanding that when you're doing with prayers, really you're changing you. You're changing what you want. You get more aligned with what God wants. What's the problem today? Again, it's when we're not aligned with what God wants. I'm not accepting this. So I get stressed, I get angry. But if I accept what He gives me, and I do what He wants, that's it. Let go. Let go. That's what I did yesterday. I let go. And then you feel at peace. That's the key. We got to get to a place where we feel inner peace. Because Rav Nachman says in lesson 10, that the reason why people are not closer to God is because they don't have a settled mind. They don't have a settled mind. Once you have a settled mind, then you can go for where you are. Let's take a couple more Torahs. Lesson 138. This lesson, when I read that, he says, the essence of godliness is in your heart. As it is written, God of my rock is my heart. Someone with a pure heart, as is, my heart is hollow. What does it mean my heart is hollow? I don't have a story. I'm open-minded. I'm open-minded. I don't have story. I don't have negativity blocking me, suppressed emotions. I'm not upset why my father wasn't nicer to me 20 years ago. All of these things, when a person lives with these negative emotions, what happens? This blocks your heart. And what do you think prayer is? Service of the heart. Prayer is service of the heart, and the heart is the seat of all the emotions. So if I'm not careful, Rav Nachman says that negative thoughts clog our heart. So of course, if you approach tefillah, if you approach Hitbodedut, if you approach conversation with Hashem with a clogged heart, you're not going to want to do it. So first you have to unclog your heart. How do you unclog your heart? Is by questioning your thinking. Not allowing every thought inside of you. I'm a soul, I'm not a thought. If I think that I'm the thought, then what happens? It becomes the emotion and have a clogged heart. Look what he's saying here. Someone with a pure heart, as it says, my heart is hollow with me, this is from Psalms 109, can know future events through which his heart tells him. You can know the future. What do you think, what do we have today? We have decision fatigue. All day long, should I do this? Should I marry him? Should I open up that business? Should I do that? Worry clogs the heart. Happiness opens the heart. So my ritual in Hitbodedut, when I do it the first thing in the morning, is first I have to be careful to be in a good state. If I'm not in a good state, if I'm not feeling good, if I'm not in a good state, then 10 is off. And 10 is off. So what do I do to put myself in a good state? I put some music on, I move around, and I have gratitude right away. Gratitude will put you in a good state. Ingratitude will not put you in a good state. So remember, prayer is Hitbodedut. You have to be in a good state. If you're in a good state, your mouth, the thoughts are going to flow. It's not going to flow if you're constricted. That's the little neck mindset. Right? What was the problem in Egypt? Mitzar Garon, Mitzrayim. what did they have to do? The speech was stuck in the throat. They have to go from what? Metzar Garon Mitzrayim to what? Pesach. Open mouth. That's what I'm doing. My speech is stuck in my throat. I got to get it out. That's what we're doing in Egypt. So we all have this aspect of Mitzrayim, and we have to shift from Mitzrayim to what? To Pesach. To get out. It's a mindset. That means Mitzrayim is our problems. Mitzrayim is the way we look at something. So what does he say here? Can know future events through which his heart tells him. These are the words of God, literally. This is a very powerful thing. Because if you have a situation, and you can wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and be in a good state and ask that question, and that thought's going to come to you. Why do I need to worry? Why do I need to have anxiety? Why do I need to be depressed? I have an appointment in the morning. I'm done. The rest of my day is free. But if you don't have any coping method to deal with it, even studies are showing that people, when they called their therapist, just made an appointment with their therapist, they felt better right away. Because I stopped worrying. I stopped going against myself. So the answer to your heart, the answer is in your heart. The more you open your heart by giving, by growing, by questioning your thinking, by focusing on gratitude, the answer to your questions, is this job the right job for me? Is that job the right job for me? Should I buy Amazon? Yes. How do you think I got that tip to buy Amazon when it was 800? I said, Amazon, Birkat Hamazon, Amazon. And what does the Gemara say? The person who says Birkat Hamazon is going to be rich. There you go, Amazon. That came in Hitbodedut, believe it or not. Every single question, every single class, every single idea comes to me in Hitbodedut. Comes to me there. I don't worry, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? No, I'll talk, I'll question, and the thoughts come in. But if that day I'm too stressed out, I miss my focus, there's no class, there's no questions, there's nothing. Zero. Only negative emotions. Only negative emotions. So we need to understand, this is the ultimate coping method, and the essence of godliness is in your heart. That's lesson 138. If that's not enough leverage to know that the answer is in your heart, I don't know what is. Lesson 124. Before we talk about the order, Reb Nachman says, when a person speaks to God and explains to him using words of argumentative, he argues with him. Part of prayer is supposed to be, you have to be awake. You have to argue with God. For example, part of me opening up my Breslau Center in Miami, how did I argue with God why he had to do it? I said, Hashem, there's 350 Chabad in Florida. I can't have one Breslau Center? All of a sudden, I got the opportunity. It's an argumentative prayer. Hashem, I don't want to sin anymore. You argue with him. So what does God want you to do? He says, when a person speaks before the Holy One and explains to him using words of argumentative, don't argue with your husband. Argue with Hashem. He wants to defeat God. God likes to be challenged. It's almost like your son that comes to you with a business plan and he convinces you to invest in him. You want to give it to him. There's nothing more greater than the father wanting to give his son, if he's got a viable business plan, the money. It brings him pleasure. He therefore, look at this, the Holy One takes pleasure in this, and he sends him words in which to defeat him. It's an open book test. All you have to do is show up and stay consistent. What happens? Hashem will all of a sudden he'll put words in your mouth on what you need to pray for. He's giving you the answer. This is your answer. So when I tell people, listen, you got to change your rituals. It's not going to work out what you're doing. What are you doing to fix this problem? No, I don't have time for this. Why don't you listen to a class? No, I don't have time for that. How can I help you? I have more time than you. So remember, And why do you not have time? I'm exhausted. Okay? Why are you exhausted? It's because you're not elevating your problems. They're coming down and you haven't elevated them. That's why. And this is the biggest game changer because, like I said, I promise you, I don't have everything I do is upstairs. I get the answer right away. And this is what Breslov teaches you. This is what Rabbi Nachman teaches you. Even to the point where you can heal yourself through prayer. This is the only avenue. And all of a sudden, the rest of your day, you have peace of mind. And when you have peace of mind, opportunities open up for you. I have 5 kids, 4 businesses, and I'm doing this every day. How in the world would I have time for this? If I didn't have the proper coping skills. How in the world would I have time for this? Impossible. But it teaches you that I can't afford to focus on something I can't control. Because if I focus on something I can't control, I'm not getting my reception the next morning. If I'm not getting my reception the next morning, I got a big problem. Then I have to worry. Because then I don't know what's going to happen. Rabbi Rush says, and the Arizal says also, that anytime you pray for something, you receive something without prayer, maybe it's not good for you. That means prayer itself is the receptacle to receive this. So now we know our emotions clog our heart. We have to be careful. If you're mad at somebody, forgive them. They're costing you prayer. They're costing you your heart. If you're upset about anything, forgive. Let go. When you let go, you have a brand new heart. All of a sudden you're connected. Because what are we doing? What's the purpose of creation? It's to imitate God. God forgives you, you forgive. That's what you're doing. You're clinging to your sores. What does recovery mean? When a person's in recovery, what is he recovering to? Himself. What are you recovering? To who you're supposed to be. Teshuvah, return to you. But remember, we need to make decisions on our soul state, not on our ego state. It's very, very important. So now you know, lesson 124, lesson 138, lesson 156, they all mirror the same thing. They're all telling us that the answers to our questions are in our heart. Why do you think Rabbi Rush was at my house many times? And every single person, Rabbi, I have this problem, do Hitbodedut. Rabbi, I have this problem, do Hitbodedut. Rabbi, I have this problem. It's the same recipe. Do this problem, do this. Everybody got the same advice. Why? Because that person did not see that problem as an opportunity to connect to God. And what did he do instead? He disconnected. Instead of connecting, you disconnected. The whole purpose was to connect. I had a lady the other day. She was depressed because her sister didn't invite her to her wedding. So I said, okay, that's the problem. But let me ask you a question. After that happened, aren't you a different person now? Aren't you listening to the classes now? You're praying more? You're a different person. Yeah, I am. So that's not a problem. That was the agent to get you there. Now, once you become a better person, you get a better life. But you can't get a better life with a bitter attitude. And that's exactly what she did. She listened, she changed through prayer, and all that. Lesson 67. Rav Nachman tells us, how do you know if you're close to your soul? What's an indication if you're close to your soul? Not by going to Soul Cycle, not by eating, I'm soulmate, soul. They're using that to market everything. Whether you can feel the prayer in your bones. That's what he's telling us. He says occasionally, when the heart is distant from the words of prayer, when the heart is distant, he's praying here, his heart is completely somewhere else, and he feels a distance, he feels disconnected, that's how you know that you're not connected. That's how you know if you're not connected. You can go to Soul Cycle anyway, but that's not going to help you get connected. What's going to help you connected is if you feel what you're the prayer. The same thing, we all have employees. Either they're looking at their job as what? As an opportunity. They put a lot of effort. In Miami, they put it as an obligation. I got to get paid so I can pay my rent. That's an obligation mentality. I don't want to have obligation people. Either it's an obligation or it's an opportunity. Anytime we put a low effort into something, it's because Shalom Bayit. If you're looking at it, I just have to keep her quiet. She's heavy, obligation. If I'm thinking about her, if I have to honor her, it's an opportunity. If you don't change your mindset on what's an obligation versus what's an opportunity, then the rest is finished. Because whatever your beliefs are, determine what? Determine your thoughts. Your thoughts determines your speech. Your speech determines your actions. Your actions become, over time, becomes your habit, and that's your life. So all actions are belief driven. So if I want to change an action, I have to go into my beliefs. I have to change how I view that situation. I have to change that situation. What is my association to that? So it's very important. That's what he says. He says in Psalms, when a person, occasionally the soul becomes weary, the soul becomes exhausted because it's separated from her Creator. How do you have to revive it? It says when we pray without a heart, the soul is distanced from the glory. And this is a famous pasuk that says, with their lips they honor me, but their heart is very distant. Yeah, but the heart is nowhere there. So again, these are all indications that you're far away from your soul. Because prayer is emunah. So now you have enough. Let me give you the 3 steps of Hitbodedut. The first step is gratitude. Without gratitude, you're never going to be in the right state of mind. You're not going to be happy. Gratitude gives you a better mindset. Gratitude will open up your heart. For example, if a person himself, so again, Hitbodedut is a conversation to God. That's what Hitbodedut is. It's a conversation to God, where a person tells God about his situation. Sometimes my Hitbodedut is, I have nothing to say today. I'm exhausted, I have this, please help me. There's times where you say absolutely nothing. There's times that there's so much pressure that you just have to show up, to show your desire. That means anytime I'm not receiving anything, if I'm stuck in life, what do I need to do? If something's getting taken away from me, what do I need to do? I need to desire it. Through desire, I end up getting it. So the first part of this Hitbodedut, and I recommend it, but Nachman says, you have to say it in a set time, in a set place. If you're distracted, you're not going to be able to do it properly. It doesn't work. It has to be in a set place. I recommend first thing in the morning, because what you focus on in the morning is a good indication on how the day is going to go. So my practice is to do it first thing in the morning. And what do we have to do? The person should walk around, because Rav Nachman says in lesson 156 that you need motion. When you speak with passion, you're motioning. It can't just be hello, hello. No, you have to move around. You got to move around. You got to create motion. That itself, when a person creates motion, that will get his mind moving. So the first thing is gratitude. Gratitude itself is just, it opens you up. Now, if you have nothing to be grateful, if a person doesn't have anything to be grateful for, then he's got broken focus. And he needs to fix his focus. That means you're focusing on the wrong thing. What do you mean? What should I be happy for? This is not going good, this is not going good, this is not good. It's called broken focus. Then you need to go what? First you have to change the focus. What are you focusing on all day? So the first step is gratitude. Gratitude of everything that's going good. Gratitude for your problems. Gratitude for everything. Because let me explain to you something. If you think your Creator is injustice, He's injustice, you're not going to be grateful for. What are you going to be grateful for? For giving you all these problems? So if I believe that my Creator is injustice, and He's attacking me, and He's going out to get me, then I'm not going to put my heart into it. So you have to first start gratitude. Gratitude, a person should start his Hitbodedut 15 minutes a day to start. Remember, it took me 10 years to do it. It took me 10 years to do it. And then it took me 6 months to get an answer. But once I got that answer, the Red Sea split. So my test was 6 months. That means, unfortunately, it's not a New York thing to be patient, but you have to be patient. And you have to, the biggest mistake you can make is pray and watch the scoreboard. Let go. Let go. Don't control everything. Let God control the prayer. Maybe that same prayer needs to be answered in 3 months, and if it happened now, it would be a problem for you. Pray and let go. Stop watching the scoreboard. You know that the Knicks, they don't change the scoreboard anyway that much. So, first thing is gratitude. That will put you in a good mood. I put music on. I move my body. I get myself, even Tony Robbins calls this the power of hour. The hour of power. Where what is he doing? He's shifting his mindset. Because guess what? Whatever state you're in gives what? The meaning you give to things. If I feel happy about myself, what's going to happen? Something's going to happen to me. I'm going to give it a different meaning. But if I don't feel good about myself, what's going to happen? That means your wife will give you the same comment. You're this. But if I had a good Hitbodedut, she woke up in the wrong side of the bed. That's the way she feels about herself. But if you don't feel good about yourself, that same morning, she's going to give you that comment. I pay your bills. I do this. I do that. You're nothing without me. The same comment came out. If you don't know how to hit the curveballs with Moroccans, you got to know how to hit curveballs. Because that means if I feel good about myself, I'm going to give things different meaning. So in the morning, gratitude. Gratitude is the first thing. It's very hard to approach God if you're not grateful. So what's the second thing you have to focus on? Very important, the second thing. Most of the problems that we have today come from fallen fears. What is fallen fears? Any time that you have something in life that you don't fear Hashem, that becomes a fallen fear. I myself went through a terrible divorce 8 years ago. And all day long I was fearing my attorneys, my judge, which is the right judge, which is the attorney. Oh my God, he charges $700 an hour. Oh my God, he does this. Oh my God, I don't know him. Googling the judge, Googling this. What happened? My fear got misplaced. Oh my God, this realtor is taking my listing. Oh my God, this competitor is taking my money. All of these things are fallen fears. That means the fear is misplaced. Instead of fearing God, it became a lower fear. Anxiety, 101, is lower fear. You think a competitor can take money from you? You don't think God has enough money for everybody? But when you start fearing your competitor, what happens? All of a sudden, that person is granted authority to seek justice because Hashem removed himself from the picture. It's a very scary thing. So any time that fear is not elevated, it becomes a fallen fear. Know there are fallen fears, all afflictions and judgments which a person experiences are entirely from fallen fears. Worry about other people, all of these, what happens? Yes, you could have a problem. Why can you have a problem? Because what's the opposite of fear? Trust. You can't have both. Either you have fear, can't be half pregnant. Either you're pregnant or you're not pregnant. Either you have fear or you have trust. If you have fear, you don't have trust. A person who trusts Hashem, what does he do? He takes massive action. He makes long-range plans. He doesn't care if he falls, he gets right back up. A person who has fear, he stays in a perfectionist prison. He never makes decisions. He's always worried about what other people think about him. And he has no life. And he's living all day in anxiety. Do we know people like that? Yes. So without trust, what is the difference between emunah and trust? Action. Action. If you're not taking action, you're still, okay, I believe it's going to work out. But when you trust, what happens? You're all in. I don't think negative anymore. I'm all in. I made a decision. good chance that either way you have to make a decision. Maybe I'm going to win in this decision. Maybe it's going to take me 3 failures to get me what I want. Who cares? I have to take the path. But if a person's living in a perfectionist prison, he's fearing other things, then those are called fallen fears. The Gemara talks about 5 things, 5 animals that are afraid of the most ridiculous things. Did you ever see an elephant walking in the circus? There's a little Indian guy with a little rope holding the elephant. How is that normal? But what does the elephant think? When I was trained, when I was younger, I tried to pull, and it didn't work. So what did the elephant do? He gave up. So now he's walking around with limited beliefs, walking around with a little Indian from Pakistan, walking around, and this elephant can rip and eat this guy, but his whole life he's stuck to a little string and a pole. That's what happens when you have fear. It tells you what to do things, when to do things, how to do it, what time. And that's your life. So without having bitachon, you live in fear. So how do you elevate this fear? The Gemara even talks about this. He says, they're the 5 biggest animals. There's an elephant that's afraid of a mouse, of a gnat. There's a lion. It's talking about, the Gemara is telling us that there's huge animals that are afraid of the most ridiculous things. Imagine a lion going into a therapist and says, listen, I have this mosquito that I can't get it out of my mind. This is exactly what happens when we're talking and we talk to a therapist. Listen, I have fallen fears. You're fearing a competitor? What is a competitor? He can't control your business. He can't control anything. You misplaced your fear. And that's why they became fallen fears. So what happens? That thing that you fear became the agent for your anxiety. That's the agent. You misplaced your fear. You misplaced your trust. And what happens? So what happens? What does Rabbi Nachman say? How do you fix this? You have to elevate the 4 fallen fears to the root. This is called mishpat. Judging yourself. That means every single day, the second part of Hitbodedut is judging yourself. Hashem, maybe I have anxiety because I fear this guy, or I fear this attorney. Listen, I lived for 2 years in misery, in massive anxiety, depression, control, all kinds of, and it's horrible. There's nothing worse than it. But once I started doing Hitbodedut, I elevated. I said, listen, you're in charge of everything. I have no control. I'm not going to fear anything but you. And the next thing you know, what happens? Because you judge yourself, there's no judgment above. It's called double jeopardy. Once you judge yourself, they can't judge you above. So we always want to do teshuvah. Teshuvah is judging yourself. Judging yourself down here, there's no judging above. That means punishment was only for the purpose of lack of teshuvah. So if a person says, listen, I made a mistake here, I yelled at my wife, I did this, I did that. He confesses all the things he did, then there's no need to send him an example to wake him up. So the second part of Hitbodedut is fixing your fears. Making sure that there's no fear. I never forget, I was in a massive court case. Maybe, who knows, 10 years ago. I've had a lot of scars. And I went to Rav Chaim Kanievsky. I went to his wife, and may she be blessed. And she told me, I told her the situation, that there's these people that are trying to take away my properties, and this whole scudder. And she gave me a prayer from the Nefesh HaChaim that says, you need to take this to court, and you're going to win. And what is the prayer? It says, Ein od levado. There's nobody but God. Because she sensed that I was fearing the wrong thing. I was putting energy in fears. So what happened? I gave them energy. Once I shifted my consciousness and I said, Ein od levado, there's nothing but God, all of a sudden, not only did the case get settled, But I recognized it was my fault giving them the energy. And then the case got settled. So anytime we're in that state of panic, we have to exit our mind, enter the moment, and ask ourselves, what are we fearing? Why am I fearing something but God? It becomes a misplaced fear. So without that, you're going to always live in panic. Without that, you're always going to live in anxiety. You can't fix. God forbid if a person's thinking, if a person thinks that one of his employees is stealing from him, he's not going to have positive thoughts. He's going to think it's a threat. He's threatening me. If I think life is a threat, of course I'm going to live in anxiety because I don't trust God. But if I think God's challenging me, then all of a sudden I say, bring it on. Difference between a threat versus a challenge. And that's based on having fear versus trust. And yeah, you have to pray for trust. You have to ask Hashem to give you strength. You have to ask Him. But when you have the lower fear, it's going to control your mind. This is exactly what happened in Egypt. The Jews, they didn't listen to Moshe. Why didn't they listen to Moshe? Because they had a kotzer ruach. They were impatient. Their emotions were taking over them. They had kotzer ruach. So second part of Hitbodedut is you must do mishpat, is judging yourself. If you're insensitive to somebody, you have to say, God, I was insensitive to somebody. I yelled by mistake. I was angry. You have to talk about it. When you talk about it, God sees you're working on yourself. Okay, cancel the judgment. We don't need to show him a lesson. It's basically a chance. Imagine you're in federal court and you have the chance to bring the case to state court. No, I don't have time. You have a chance to bring your case to state court. Why would you go to federal court? I'm busy. Okay. Stephen Covey gives a great example of the guy cutting the saw. He's exhausted, right? And they tell him, listen, just take 10 minutes a day and just sharpen the saw. Just sharpen it. It'll cut much easier. No, I don't have time. This is good enough. But it's not working. This is kotzer ruach. You have 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day to sharpen your mind and to focus on what's going on in the day, and you don't want to do it? Okay. Then pretty much things happen the same way. And that's when I see the people that do Hitbodedut, they see massive changes in their life because they get rid of the fallen fears. They stop worrying over problems. They get their heart back. They become forgiving. They say God bless to their ex-wives, ex-husbands. They don't hate anybody. It's a different life. They go to relationships to give instead of going to get. They don't care. They stay in their lane. He makes money. God bless them. They're different people. You would never want when other people be jealous of another person. That's his own life. It has nothing to do with me. I have a full-time job working on myself. But people that do not do this, all day long, I don't understand why God did this. He's receiving, they're not in the lane, they're bitter, they get sick, and they have a miserable life. And they don't understand why things happen. And then their personal reality becomes their personality. If a guy tells you, yeah, this guy's he's angry. Yeah, he's been like that for 5 years. 5 years? It's a long time. No? The question you're thinking, 5 years. Did you ever maybe think, maybe I'm off on my thinking? But I'm like that he's bitter. 10 years he's like this. 10 years? Why did you waste 10 years because of your thinking? That's little neck. We want to get the great neck. That's the second part. The third part is now you can request. You can request in the third part of Hitbodedut. You can request. But once you start doing this, you're going to request different things. That means, what does spirituality do for us? It lets us be happy with less. I don't need this to make me happy. Spirituality, what I'm doing is, I'm happy with less. Why do I need so much? I'm content. I don't need to be a rat racer all day long. It lets you be happy with less. So through this contemplation, then you start stop thinking about yourself all the time. You start with less. What's bringing the majority of anxiety today? Outcome obsession, self-absorption, and self-comparison. No? What's the majority of anxiety today? All day long, outcome? Outcome obsession, outcome obsession, outcome obsession. You're not in the moment. God's taking you on a journey. He doesn't want you to focus on the destination. Self-comparison. Stay in your lane. Who are you? His life is not your life. He's got a different tikkun completely. Believe me, if you hear the phone calls that I get, where people would be shocked that these people would have problems. But what happens is people use online media today to post the highlight films. The best moments in their day. A couple called me the other day. We're getting a divorce. Why are we getting it? I just saw the coconuts on the beach the other day. How could you be getting a divorce? I don't get it. Because people put the highlight films. They're not putting the way she threw the shoe at the guy and she called him every name in the book. Nobody's putting that stuff. Here's my highlight film. I want you to focus on that. Or the person that goes and says, I don't understand how this guy's on a $30,000 Passover vacation and I'm scrubbing chametz. What do you think happens to his Passover? Miserable. You're not making enough money. Why am I scrubbing chametz and she's in the beach? Ma nishtana, you're going to throw the cup in your husband. But this is what happens. We can't look at people's highlight films and think this is life. It's nothing, because everybody's struggling. Everybody has some kind of suffering. There's no question about it. And you have to be real. But to think this guy's got the perfect life. Rav Nachman said it clearly. He says, nobody has Olam Hazeh. Nobody has this world. Nobody. Everybody's got. Either you can live the beautiful girl in Beverly Hills. She doesn't know if her husband's cheating on her or not. Beautiful $7,000, $8,000 house, $20 million house, but she's not number one in the relationship. What do you think that feels like? Cold life, miserable. Everything she has in the book. That's the phone calls I get. That's the phone calls I get. But people think they have everything. And you couldn't be more mistaken. That's why it's always good to stay in your lane. So, those are the three things. When you start with gratitude, all of a sudden you open up, change your focus. Then you work on your fears. Because without having these fears, what happens? You can never get to the set. And then you can start requesting. I like that. If you want, we can take some questions, but I'm pretty much done for the night. Any questions? Good? Okay. We'll take like 5 questions, 5-10 questions if you guys want. I made you wait 8 hours yesterday so I could take questions. Yes?
As you wake up, how do you not focus on the issues
that
you're going to confront during the day? Like, how do you have the
peace
of mind to do the things?
He's asking, how do you have the peace of mind? So again, we have to recognize, like when you see a football game, and you see that they're getting blown out every day, what do? They watch game film. What do I do? When I'm miserable when I do this, when I'm focusing with a lack. We don't want to show that we have a lack, because lacks bring more lacks. Specifically, most people say, look at all the financial lacks I have, but spiritually, I'm okay. Spiritually, I have no lack. But financial, I need all this. Focus on the spiritual, saying, I'm not there spiritually, and then you'll see the other things come. It's shift the focus. So again, in the morning, you're going to have to fight your feelings. It's not easy. There's many times where I fight my feelings, but we don't want to be slaves to our feelings. And remember, the Yetzer Hara cannot prevent the prayer from going up, but he could prevent you from praying. Remember, he can't prevent the prayer. Once it's up, but he can prevent you from not praying. He can tell you, no, don't do it, it's a waste of time, etc. So you have, remember, if all your life becomes is what you feel like all the time, you're going to have no life. That means what? Our behaviors determine our feelings, not the other way around. If your feelings are determining your behaviors, then your identity is going to be, I always procrastinate. Second question, yes? No, this is a conversation from your heart, not a siddur. This is completely separate to any kind of prayer. This is a conversation. Because God wants you to approach Him with the situation you have. Yes?
You said it took you 6 years and then...
10 years.
Oh, 10 years.
Yes.
How did you suddenly realize that you were in the right place?
Because things got really bad and nothing else worked. I get it. Inspiration or desperation? Desperation. But it's normal. It's normal. I mean, you know, what I'm trying to say is, even when you're struggling at this in the beginning, don't say something's wrong with me. No. Because of what you're going to get out of it, there's going to be tremendous amount of hurdles in that. By the way, all my classes are gedale.com, gedale.com. It's also very good to pray for what you learned. For example, if a person listens to a class, he should take that class and ask God to help him, whatever he's struggling with in that class. Yes?
The answers you got, in what form? You hear words?
I hear, for example, a great question. When I ask a question, and then I'll feel a rush of energy coming down in my body. If I know it's the right thing, I'll get a rush of energy. You get like a crazy rush of energy. But remember, you have to put yourself on fire. You got to be in a peak state. You can't be... you got to move. Move. Yes?
Can you elaborate on when ideas come to you and you say not necessarily it's your path or what you should be doing? Like,
Right.
how can you distinguish between not everything that's coming to us is the right thing to do?
Right. Remember, we do have negative thoughts. But if I'm getting negative thoughts on anything that I want to do spiritually, it's coming from the Yetzer Hara. Does that make sense? So, and my belief in life is, you can ask as many times, but sometimes God wants to show you 5 failures before you make it. And you have to go through that path. And there's nothing, I mean, I can't tell you, I prayed for something, I got answered, but I didn't get answered on the first round. I had to go through that experience. And you just have to, the bottom line is a person has to trust in Hashem, and because he made a decision, he's always going to say, okay, I failed, what's next? You know, the main thing is not to be in the why me mode. The why me mode will never give you your answers. The what's next is what's going to get you your answers. We want to avoid self-pity.
I got it, but I'm not talking about failure. I'm talking like, let's say you had an opportunity today,
Right.
and you didn't ask for it.
Right.
But how do you, so you say just go for it, and if you...
I personally, I'll pray about that situation. If the situation is good, let it work out for me. And then I just get going. Because I believe in life. It's not like when you get married, you know, if you pick box B, you're going to be happy. And box A, you're not going to be happy. It's not a game show. It's work. Either way, whatever decision I'm making, it's work. So I myself, I recognize any failure that I have to fix the procedure or the perception. And I'm able to move very quickly into solutions instead of thinking about problems. You know, yes?
So you mentioned about the gratitude and talking about how grateful you are.
Yes.
I have friends that are going through rough times, they don't have much.
Right.
To be thankful. And you said you can search, what do you...
Maybe I can forward some phone calls to them. Or you can come to my rehab, and then they'll change your perspective. You have to change your perspective. I mean, I have people that lost every dollar because they had a kid in rehab. There's people with horrible situations, and just the perception's off. Yes.
How can you connect singles with not married people so we can...
How can I do that? I'm trying to make social scenes. Every time we do a class, I want to have a social scene afterwards. Thank God I'm on my 5th child. I'm going to have more time to travel, God willing. So I'm going to have more singles events and everything. In LA, we're going to have a single scene in LA tomorrow. Huh? You can come to LA. There's a flight at 10 o'clock. Yes.
Was there any difference?
No. 0. He asked me For 6 months, did you see any difference? How about things got worse? Things got worse. Situation that I was in, it got worse. But I said, there's no way. If Rav Nachman's telling you in lesson 25 that his Hitbodedut is the highest asset and greater than everything, how could you not do it? I really had blind faith. And that's what you need to have. You can't figure everything out in life. You just have to have blind faith.
Not difference in your life, difference when you were doing what to do.
Right.
The focus.
Right.
Were you getting better at it?
I was getting a little bit better, but the problem is I was too hung on the outcome obsession. And we need to also remember something Let's say a guy's been single for 10 years, and he's fooling around. Right? Not that ever happens. And let's say he does get married. What do you think is going to happen the first year? You think he's going to have peaches and cream? No. Now he has to pay the debt for the 10 years of fooling around. Yeah. It's like the guy that never paid his taxes. All of a sudden he starts paying his taxes, and now he gets audited. So, yeah, you have to pay a back penalty, but at least you're going in the right direction. So any troubles that we're having is cleansing, because the vessel needs a cleansing. Suffering cleanses a vessel. So I knew that I had a cleansing that needed to be done. Yes, any other questions? Yes.
Can you clarify on the second part of this Hitbodedut?
Yeah. The second part is called mishpat, judgment. If I judge myself here, let's say I'm a miserable husband. I tell Hashem, I am a miserable husband. Please help me become a better husband. But let's say I think I'm a great husband, and I'm a miserable husband. Then I'm going to get all kinds of messes in my life, showing how miserable a husband I am. So what it does is it teaches you, you admit you have the problem. You're not running away from it. The problem today is, imagine somebody breaking your window with a baseball and then running away. You broke the window, at least confront it. So when we make a mistake, don't run away. That's the problem that happened with Adam. What was Adam's problem? He made a mistake, and what did he do? He ran away. He hid. All God wanted him to do is what? Do teshuvah. Is do teshuvah. Don't hide. Today people do something and they go out of bounds. So it gets worse and worse. So you want to make sure if you have any fears that are not upstairs, any kind of anxiety of the business of anything, that fear is not elevated. It's misplaced. You fear a competitor. You fear Trump. You fear taxes. You fear all this garbage. This is a misplaced fear. You fear Hillary's going to take over the world. This is a misplaced fear. It's not, if you're watching too much CNN, that's the beginning of your fears. It's the bottom line. It's the bottom line. Don't watch news. Because they're not fears. My mother-in-law has so much anxiety, and she's not even a politician. And she's got anxiety from all these fears, and fearing this is going to happen. I'm like, this is not up to you. If that's what God wants to happen, it's going to happen. You want to go protest? Go protest. But it's not going to help the fear and the anxiety, because your trust is misplaced. And that's the number one way to get rid of anxiety. Go from fear to trust. And how do we say this? We say this is not a challenge. This is not a threat. This is a challenge. Got it? Yes.
So it's like dwelling on your imperfection.
You're dwelling on the things that you need work on. If you get angry, it's basically you're watching game film of yesterday, and you're saying, oh, I made that mistake, but you're recognizing that you need work on yourself. That is mishpat. If you do that, God does not need to remind you that you need to do teshuvah. Does that make sense? It's able to reduce the judgment instead of getting the judgment out of control. This is a very important part of Hitbodedut. Because you can say, listen, I made a mistake, I said I'm sorry, the party's over. You get it off your chest. Yes?
How do you differentiate fear from trauma?
Right.
About something that happened in the past that you're traumatized?
Right. we had a lot of classes on trauma, and like I said before, not everything that happens to you is about you. Sometimes you have to go through events in life, and your job is to not overcome is not to question evil, but to overcome it. I mean, in my life, the only time I've ever seen anything is when those situations, through Emunah, I got closer to God. So the question is, you have to turn post-traumatic stress into post-traumatic growth. But you have to ask Hashem. Only through Emunah are you ever going to get the answer why that happens. Through finding meaning, through finding purpose. Go ahead, yes.
The second part
Yes.
going and being going and reflecting on it.
Yes, it's called personal judgment, mishpat.
What if you're overly personally, like where you're critical?
Too much. That's a problem.
And that's a problem.
Yes. Only Jews have that problem. Yeah. Over, everything's over, right. Yeah. Yeah. You have to, Rabbi Nachman spoke very much about simplicity. You know, sometimes you get people, they write you 4 pages on something. I don't even know where to start. We have to simplify things. The Yetzer Hara, we need to understand our imagination. The Yetzer Hara, his job is to make things worse than they are. He's a catastrophe. He wants to catastrophize everything. That's his number one job. Take something in your life and make it worse than it is. And your job is to understand that that's the job of the Yetzer Hara. So let's view the problem as it is, not worse than it is. You understand? Yes. When you do Hitbodedut and you start listening to classes, the classes will give you more awareness, and that awareness will give you mercy. Yes.
Thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. I listen to you all the time. It's
Yes.
a blessing.
Thank you so much.
You talk a lot about Tikkun HaKali and
Yes.
the 40-day challenge.
Yes.
So can you explain that? What
Yeah.
are we supposed to do?
Tikkun HaKlali is mostly, the majority of it is for men. It's because, that's a whole different class altogether. But the bottom line is klipot. When a person spills the seed, it creates a soul without a body. And that connects to that person. That will be tomorrow's topic in LA. Tomorrow in LA is Tikkun HaKlali. I shipped 500 books over there already. Listen online. Yes.
So you seem to have faith and, give yourself over to God. But
Yes.
if I struggle with the belief of God,
Right.
I think that's step 2, right? I need to,
You have to change your belief, your association.
and then give myself over, but I struggle with the belief of God altogether.
Right.
How do I get to the first point to be able to have this motive and to get
Right.
to that?
If you're struggling with Emunah, then you have to learn everything about Emunah that you can learn about. I would recommend listening to my classes. You just need a new mindset.
I do, and I went to Rabbi Rosen, and he told me to get the God and the
Yeah.
working on it.
Very good. That's all you can do is work on something. All right? Good? Yes?